Hey friends, welcome to our first garden tour of the season. I have been waiting anxiously to do this. We wanted to do a garden tour when we planted and some of that footage got messed up. But we're doing our first tour now and things are growing. It's looking great down here. We've had a really dry week. So things are needing some extra watering and growing a little slow because they do so much better when we get a really good rain because of all the nutrition that is in rain. So I'm gonna show you around a little bit tonight. So this year we did a trellis for my Determinate tomatoes. So I have, I believe, 10 along here. And my Determinate tomatoes, I am going to prune to only one stem. So basically, what that means, if you're not familiar with the world of tomatoes and Indeterminate and Determinate, Indeterminate tomatoes have an interdetermined amount of tomatoes that grow. So they can produce all season long until frost. And the reason we prune them is because they get so tall, and that just helps it keep it healthy, the leaves off the ground, and they can get like 6 foot. So that's why we have a trellis. And what I do is I just take off the bottom leaves wherever they're kind of like touching, almost touching the ground. I'll take them off and go through like this little sucker here in the armpit of the tomatoes. I'll take that off and they're looking really good. And I think I saw, oh, hey kitty, did you come join us? Hi. She is my sidekick in the garden. If the kids aren't with me, Belle is. And okay, so look at this. Oh, this gets me so excited. Our first little baby tomatoes are growing. There's tons of blossoms and they're just looking so good. Oh, here's some more. See, these weren't even here this morning. Well, this one was, but these little ones are popping. Oh, that's so exciting. I can't wait. So I have a couple of different varieties of Determinate tomatoes this year. I have some really big beefsteaks for sandwiches. We eat tomato sandwiches all summer long. As long as the tomatoes are producing, we are eating tomato sandwiches. I buy mozzarella by the ball and we cut it up and put it on tomatoes with tons of basil. The taste of summer. Also mosquitoes are summer too. But I have some like big beefsteaks, different varieties of those. And I have some pink beef this year, which I'm excited to try. Oh, and Golden Jubilee, which those are down at the end, I believe. Golden Jubilee are one of my favorite tomatoes to grow. My grandma always had them in her garden growing up. So, or my grandma or aunt, one of them. But they remind me so much of like my childhood, a good, juicy yellow tomato. So I grow those for nostalgia purposes, but also they're a lower acidic tomato. And so my kids like them a little bit better. I prefer them if I'm just eating them, you know, with some mozzarella or something. They're so yummy. And then I also wanted to show you something with this. So I believe, yeah, so look at these two little blossoms. See how they're a little bit smaller? This one right here is like a gigantor. I don't know if you can really even tell on camera that much, how much bigger it is. You can kind of see it side by side. But this is called a fasciated blossom. And so basically what happened is two blossoms joined together and that is gonna produce a giant tomato that is like stuck together. If you've ever seen a tomato that's kind of deformed, they call it cat facing, that is from a fasciated blossom. And so I usually pick those off because usually in a fasciated blossom, there's parts that you can't eat because mold gets in there and stuff. And so I'd rather have a couple really good tomatoes than one gigantic fasciated blossom. I am getting eaten alive. I should have put bug spray on. And this is my one cherry tomato plant I have this year in my garden. It is a bumblebee cherry tomato. I'm really excited to try this. It's from Botanical Interest and it's growing really nicely. Beginning of the season when I first planted it, it had some like brown stems and I wasn't sure what was going on. I just cut it off and hope for the best and it seems to be doing okay. So back here is my trellis and different cold weather crops that I put in a little late. This dinosaur kale is doing pretty good, and we've eaten some off of it, but you can see the pest pressure is kind of getting the best of me there. These over here are cauliflowers. I started them late and was just kind of like, hey, maybe I'll get lucky and we'll have a cool spring. And they have been doing pretty well, but now that it's getting warmer, I don't know if they'll form anything or not, but they're really pretty to look at, so I'm just letting them go. And then same thing with the peas. I don't really have much luck with peas here in the spring. In Tennessee, something also has eaten the tops of those. I plant my peas usually in the fall, and I have a much better luck with doing peas in the fall than I do with peas in the winter. And then what we have here is kind of overkill amount of cucumbers, but I have some pickling cucumbers along here. I sowed these things, I would say like 3 times. I think we had flooding, which washed away the seeds, and I think the next round I planted must have like what's the word I'm looking for? Total brain fart there. The second sowing just kind of like molded or something in the soil and did not germinate. And so the third one I think I had success with, but they were also getting eaten by pests, and I think I have some slugs, and I put little beer traps out at night, and that draws them into the beer and they drowned. And I also cut up, like dried my eggshells and put them around, and those are finally coming up really nice. This one you can see kind of got eaten before I could save it, but here's some nice ones. So I'll have to thin out some of this. One of these is a volunteer, I believe it was a lemon cucumber from last year. I'm not sure if I'm gonna keep it. It's this one, but it's looking so healthy. I feel bad to take it away. Got nasturtiums. We have nasturtiums everywhere. They're my favorite. And then this right here is one of my favorite sections of the garden. And this is gonna have mammoth sunflowers growing up, and it's gonna be really pretty. So it'll go up the trellis there and kind of creates also like a little wall of privacy for the bench, which is really sweet. I like that, but they're getting really big. This one looks really healthy, really good. And then on this side of the trellis, I have all my basil. So this is my basil row. All different kinds of varieties of basils, and they're coming up so cutely. There's some purple basil that's growing. More nasturtiums. Nasturtiums are a great pest trap plant, and so they will draw a lot of the aphids and stuff and keep them away from your tomatoes, which is great. More basil. So I have nasturtiums everywhere for that reason. There's some dill in there. Nasturtiums are also a really fascinating story about them is people grew them in World War II, and you can eat the leaves. They're kind of peppery. My daughter loves to like play with them and pretend cook with them and make little salads and stuff. And then I don't mind eating them if I know that it's from the garden. But women grew them in World War II because their leaves were edible, their flowers are edible, and when they go to seed, they have these huge seeds that you can grind up as pepper, and they taste really peppery. I have never done that part with the seeds, but the leaves and the flowers are very peppery. So I can imagine that the seed would be a really good pepper alternative. So on this side, we have all my Determinate tomatoes. We grow a lot of tomatoes because I can them for salsa and tomato juice for like tomato soup. We eat a lot fresh, and they're all doing so good. Ooh, I spot a big one here. They're just growing so much right now. Oh, it's so crazy. It's so pretty. This is an Ace 55. I've never grown that before. I'm excited about that. And I think there was some on here too. Tiny little, oh no. That's a bummer. That was the first, I think that was a Romo. No, it wasn't. What is this? I have these marked, but my stakes, they didn't, the permanent marker didn't stay. So it's some kind of like plum tomato, but that's sad. Sometimes that happens. Oh well. But everything's looking really good. I'm really excited about all the tomatoes that we'll be growing this year. Oh, and Determinate tomatoes. I do not prune Determinate tomatoes. I put them in these cages and I let them bush. And Determinate tomatoes basically means that there is a determined amount that the plant is going to produce. And so I don't prune them because I don't want to take away from that determined amount. And they're more of like a bush variety, so they're not going to get like super tall. I've had some Determinate tomatoes like still go above the cage and they kind of slump over, but not like interdeterminate tomatoes. So they're looking really good. Pest pressure hasn't been too bad this year. And I have basil everywhere. Little basils and marigolds. I love marigolds. The scent of them is really pretty. And they look beautiful. And they also help deter pests. What you got your eye on there, Belle? You're watching something. And then more nasturtiums, just little baby nasturtiums. What does she see? What do you see? Cats are funny. This is my pepper row. So we have, I believe there's like 18 different kinds of peppers here. I have more of like I have 2 cayennes there on the end. And then my bell peppers and banana peppers. I have a pimento in there. Lunchbox peppers, which are like my favorite, and the kids love those. And then tons of jalapenos and cayenne peppers. And then I didn't have room for these, so I threw them in a pot. These are shishito peppers. I'm trying them for the first time per the recommendation of other gardeners. So I'm excited about that. My peppers. So peppers like to hold hands. So I plant them about like 8 to 10 inches apart in like a zigzag pattern. And they will bush, they kind of hold hands, they support one another. I do put them either in cages if I have extra, or just like a pole. And then I just tie the stem to the pole. But this will produce a lot of peppers. We love to fresh eat peppers. I grow cayenne peppers purposely for crushed red pepper. It'll change your life. It's so good. We put it on everything. And then jalapenos I grow specifically for cowboy candy, and that we put again on everything. Nachos, eggs, on crackers with cream cheese. It is so delicious. And when I do that canning process, I'm gonna post a video, so make sure you subscribe below so you don't want to miss out on those videos. And then bell peppers, last year I found the end of the season I had just a ton and needed to use them up, and I made pickled peppers for like sandwiches and salads. So good. So we have lots of peppers here. We eat lots of peppers. Over here we have green beans, and they are just bushing out so nicely. I grow bush beans, and so they don't need a trellis. They just kind of bush up and support one another. But I have 2 rows here. This is a bush variety of Blue Lake. That's one of my favorite for freezing and fresh eating. And then this row is the Provider bush bean, and that one lives up to its name. I grew those last year and it provided so many green beans. But I do prefer the taste of Blue Lake better for freezing. The Provider froze good, but Blue Lake had better taste once they froze. And over here we have 2 trellises this year, and we have access to chicken wire pretty easily because my husband's work, so we use chicken wire for trellises. But I'm growing different little things. I'm growing a Kajari melon for the first time. I'm pretty excited about that. That was a recommendation from a gardener, and they're like personal sized melons. And my kids are really excited about those. I'm really excited about those. Who wasn't excited about a melon that fits in your hand that you can just crack open and eat in the garden? Gets me excited. And then here is a sugar baby bush watermelon. And so I planted this on the end. It's not supposed to get huge because it's a bush variety. I'm just gonna let it go out here. We'll see what happens with that. And then another Kajari melon on this side. And that'll go up. Nasturtiums, marigolds. I love marigolds in the garden. And this one looks really pretty. And then on this trellis here, I have Armenian cucumber, and I might have to thin these out a lot actually. Only one of these little seedlings. This is a honey nut squash that just produces small squashes, and again, it's just gonna go wild probably over here. This might be a hot mess over here, and I might never do it again, but one of the things I love about gardening is experimenting every year. I love like July and August when the garden is just exploding with growth and there's just stuff everywhere and it's pretty. So I like a wild garden. I probably lean more on the side of like liking just the wildness of it and not like completely straight lines. As you can see, I don't have a lot of straight lines, but we have Marketmore I'm trying, and I'm hesitant to thin these out right now because we've had some slug pressure, pest pressure too. So I'm kind of waiting to see if one of the slugs just takes these. When they're a little bit bigger, I will take away, make sure there's only one per section there. And then this beauty over here is my herb garden. It's filling out really nicely. This is lemon balm. It smells delicious. I make like an evening tea all summer long with that and some spearmint and lemon thyme. This lemon thyme is like a giant carpet. Look at it. If only you could smell this. Oh my word, it smells so good. So good. So we have some spearmint. I might regret putting in there. I put that in there last year and it's already like quadrupled in size, but I like to experiment. So, and then holy basil is one of my favorites to grow. It has so many benefits, health benefits. It's supposed to help with stress and headaches, and it smells so good. It makes a lovely, lovely tea. And I grew a couple different varieties of sage this year. So again, this area is gonna be probably a wild mess, but I'm okay with wild messes. I like it. So this is the back side of the garden here. Isn't it lovely? Makes me so happy. And then this year, this was Rachel's old garden last year. So she had this small little section that attached to mine. And this year we gave her her own, which I'll show you. So I just have like a couple rows of zinnias in here. And you can see what I did this year. I've never done this before, but I did it. Again, the recommendation of another gardener. I took off the top. When this got 2 sets of leaves here, I just pinched the top off and then it bushes. So there's new growth. It's gotten some new growth down here in the bottom. And so apparently when you pinch your zinnias like that, it's supposed to be bushier, you get more blooms, and it's not so leggy. I don't have any way I'm supporting this other than other flowers that are growing along here. So I wanted to try that, and I think it's gonna be pretty good. A couple cosmos in the front. This is just gonna be absolutely lovely. Here by this bench, all these flowers, more lemon balm. This is a part of the mint family. So this is taking over. And oh, this is a type of a stone crop, and this gets really pretty pink flowers. So it'll get really high and it gets really pretty pink flowers. This is kind of stepping over. This is kind of my like little perennial bench area, my seating area. Stuff that comes back every year and just keeps getting bigger. Thyme, it's budding, bringing lots of pollinators. And yeah, this is my favorite spot in the garden. Sitting on this bench, taking in the view. Like you sit here, I'll just sit, I'll show you. If I sit here, this is my view. Isn't it absolutely stunning? It just like captivates me, and I could just spend hours here. And once everything is full and grown, you're like, feel like you're like nestled in a cocoon sitting here. Lots of conversations and quiet times are spent here, and I love it. So it's my favorite spot. This year also, I got these little containers from the Dollar Tree, and I threw in some lima beans, and they're doing really well. They're growing really good, and some basil, more basil, just basil everywhere. Wherever there is an empty spot in the garden, there's probably basil or marigolds. It's just kind of the two things that I love to grow. And I'll probably have to move this at some point, but this is a black beauty squash. Squash bugs here are absolutely awful. So I have not had a complete like success in growing squash. Usually it grows like crazy and we get a good amount of squash. Usually to the point where I'm like, okay, I'm kind of done with squash. And then the squash bugs take it. I've always had like dreams of like preserving it or shredding it so I could pull it out of the freezer and make zucchini bread, but that has never happened. Squash bugs are just not fun here. So they're kind of tucked in. I have 3 squash plants. This one I need to decide which one I want to keep here. This is a prolific yellow squash that's growing, and I'm gonna say the name of this one wrong, but it's like a something with a C, I forget what it's called. And it's a really pretty like striped squash. It's really long, has beautiful flowers that stay on the squash, and I really like that variety. It was really like soft and buttery and delicious. First time ever growing okra. So you can kind of see the pests, but I think it'll be all right. Those leaves are coming in pretty strong, but I'm just giving them a chance to get a little bit bigger, and then one of these, whichever one is strongest, will stay, and the other one I just snip at the base with my fingernails. That way one of them gets all the nutrients. They're not competing for nutrients, and I'll have 2 really pretty okra plants here. So it's gonna be a full garden. It really is. This was just random stuff I had left I threw in there. I guess there was some stuff germinating, little basils in there. I also have lettuce sown underneath the tomatoes here. It's kind of growing. We'll see if the heat takes that out or not. I'm not sure. But it's really lovely. I really like it. I'll show you what Rachel's got going on over here. Okay, but stop first. I'm gonna show you. Look at the blossoms of these cayenne peppers. They are just so pretty. I love it. It's a cayenne blend I got from Botanical Interest, and it's like different colors of cayenne peppers that grow on the plants. So I'm excited to see what they look like. So here, okay, so let me step back. So here's the garden from this angle here. And then we walk over here, and Rachel wanted hers separate but still connected. So here's her little path. She got my old rain gauge, and she has her own little flower bed here, which will be pretty large, but that's okay. She did an amazing job sewing it by herself. It looks so lovely. I'm sure she'll talk about it at some point. And she's got peppers over here she planted. Looks like they might need some kind of nutrients of some sort. They're a little yellow. And her tomato plants here are just so sweet, and they're blossoming. But she planted all of this by herself. All of it. I helped her, figure it out and lay out a little bit. But she found these hostas in the woods, and she dug those up, put those in there. She has a sunflower growing there, nasturtium, and of course she wanted basil rows, just like mommy. We need to go through and weed these. So she's got basil along here. But this might be one of like my proudest mom moments. Rachel has always been my buddy in the garden. We started gardening when she was just a little over 2, and she took to it right away. She loves being down here. She loves planting. She loves harvesting. The care part, is not her favorite. So we're still trying to figure that out. But this is her garden this year. I don't plan on touching it, and she needs to come down and weed out some of that stuff, and I will show her and teach her, but it's totally hers, and she's owning it. And her knowledge with gardening is so sweet. It's amazing what our kids retain when we don't even realize they're listening. Like a lot of times I think she picked up stuff on me just telling Clint or telling my friends, and other times me teaching her, but I'm like, are you really understanding what I'm saying? And she has. So it's really sweet to see the fruit of that in her little sweet garden here. But I'm really excited for the garden this year. It's gonna be a really good year. Carson, this is his tractor garden. He wanted a tractor garden, and he picked up a couple plants and threw them in there. Those were what he wanted, and he wanted a pack of the pea seeds, and they're really growing really good. So I was honestly a little surprised they were going to germinate, because we didn't really like till up this soil or nothing. He just kind of threw stuff in here and wanted worms and trucks, and he wanted a packet of seeds, and he picked peas. So he threw them in here. I didn't help him, and it's pretty impressive. The flowers I helped him plant, but not the peas. So that is the garden so far. It's the end of May, and this time of year, week after week, there's just so much growth. It is crazy the amount of growth. In just a month, we'll be harvesting some stuff, and the garden will start to look like a little bit of a jungle. But thanks for joining me on my evening stroll. Stay tuned, subscribe below. We want to do weekly garden tours if we get around to it. Mom with 2 kids keeps me busy, plus maintaining this and all other things, so we hope to get them in. We love sharing this part of our lives with you. I get so much joy in sharing it and teaching, so thanks for strolling with me tonight. Make sure you subscribe below, and I hope you have a wonderful evening. B-roll.